Hey, welcome back, friends, to another episode of Walking Through the Past with John Hart. Today's episode, what kind of people are we? America's terrible history with insane asylums. Belinda Grace is doing an internship at the forensic unit at Milledgeville. Yes, there is still a facility on the old Central State Hospital grounds in Milledgeville, Georgia, that houses and treats individuals who are considered criminally insane or require forensic psychiatric care. That alone started my research on asylums, being as how she was over there. You know, there are stories in our country's past that make me proud, and then there are stories that make me ashamed. Tonight, I'm going to talk about one of the latter, because America has a terrible history with insane asylums. A history that stretches back to the early 1800s, when states began building massive institutions out in the countryside. They were supposed to be places of refuge, places of healing, places where people suffering from mental illness could find peace. But that's not what happened to those places. Those places become warehouses of human misery. In the early 19th century, reformers like Dorothea Dix pushed states to build hospitals for the mentally ill. She meant well. She believed people deserved care, not chains. But once the buildings went up, the money dried up. States didn't want to pay for the staff. Families didn't want to deal with relatives who couldn't work, and so the hospitals filled, not with patients, but with people society didn't want to see. By the late 1800s, asylums were overcrowded, understaffed, and dangerous. People were locked in rooms for days, beaten, starved, left naked, left alone, and left forgotten. And the country? Well, we just looked the other way. As the decades rolled on, things didn't get better, they got worse. By the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, state hospitals were overflowing. Some held 10 times the number of people they were designed for. Doctors resorted to desperate, brutal treatments. Lobotomies, forced sterilization, ice baths, electroshock without anesthesia, chemical restraints, isolation rooms. Many patients weren't mentally ill at all. They were poor. They were elderly. They were disabled. They were women who talked back. They were children with epilepsy. They were veterans with trauma. They were people who didn't fit the mold. And once you went in, you didn't come out. After World War II, something changed. Conscientious objectors, young men who refused to fight, were assigned to work in mental institutions. What they saw horrified them. They wrote letters, they told reporters, and in 1946, Life magazine published a shocking expose showing the filth, the abuse, and the neglect. America was forced to look at what it had built. But even then, the change was slow. Then came the 1950s and everything shifted. Doctors discovered chlorpromazine, the first antipsychotic medication. Suddenly, politicians believed long-term hospitalization was no longer necessary. Reformers argued that locking people away violated civil rights. And in 1965, Medicare and Medicaid introduced the IMD exclusion, refusing to pay for care in psychiatric hospitals with more than 16 beds. That decision, that one line of policy, financially strangled the entire asylum system. States began shutting down hospitals, patients were released by the thousands, and the community service that were supposed to replace them, they never came. From 1955 to 2005, America eliminated over 90% of its psychiatric hospital beds. And most of the people who had lived in those institutions were simply put out on the street. No housing, no medication, no therapy, no support, nothing. We closed the asylums, and check this out, replaced them with the homelessness. The modern reality from asylums to prisons. Today, the largest mental health institutions in America aren't hospitals, they're jails. Los Angeles County Jail, Cook County Jail, Rikers Island. More people with mental illness are incarcerated than treated. We didn't fix the problem, we just moved it. We traded padded rooms for concrete cells. We traded nurses for guards. We traded treatment for punishment. And you know, we call that progress. So what kind of people are we? You know, that's the question that haunts me. What kind of people build places that torture the vulnerable, then tear them down and leave those same vulnerable people wandering the streets? What kind of people lock away the mentally ill for a century, then abandon them in bus stations and alleyways? What kind of people look at suffering, real suffering, human suffering, and decide it's too expensive to fix? What kind of people are we? You know, because the truth is, we're still doing it. We're still failing the people who need us most. We're still pretending mental illness is a personal flaw instead of a medical condition. We're still treating the sick like animals. We're still running away from the uncomfortable parts of our history. And until we face it, until we admit what we've done, we'll keep repeating it. Thank you for joining me this evening. As always, take care of yourself, take care of each other. And remember, the mountains keep their secrets, but they never forget. If you enjoy these podcasts, please share, like, subscribe, comment. For information on and sales of my books, go to johnhardarthur.com. God bless you, and I'll see you on the next ridge.